Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our live coverage, where we'll follow the latest developments in local, regional, and international affairs, including the ongoing Iranian aggression that has targeted countries within the region and fueled an unbearable conflict in the Middle East. As we enter another day following the heinous Iranian attacks on the state of Kuwait and other Gulf nations, we have major updates over the past 24 hours up until this moment. The Gulf region is facing a period of heightened tensions as the ongoing confrontation involving Iran continues to unfold across several strategic areas. The recent missile and drone attacks targeting military sites as well as energy infrastructure have raised growing concerns about regional security and the stability of international energy supplies. The repercussions are extending beyond the immediate conflict. Global markets are reacting to the uncertainty, with oil prices climbing and financial markets closely monitoring developments, particularly around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical routes for oil and gas shipments. The United States remains at the center of the unfolding developments, with Washington closely monitoring the situation as regional tensions continue to escalate. As the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump assesses both the security and diplomatic dimensions of the crisis, attention is also turning to the broader implications for international stability. More on that in this report.
In Washington, the current escalation in the Middle East is being closely monitored at the highest levels of government as the administration of Donald Trump assesses the evolving situation. The Pentagon has confirmed that U.S. forces in the region remain on heightened alert, with defensive systems actively monitoring developments following recent incidents involving drones and missiles. Officials have emphasized that the primary objective remain the protection of American personnel and allied nations, particularly in light of rising tensions across the Gulf. At the same time, Washington is engaged in ongoing consultations with its allies, including the United Kingdom, the European Union, and countries in the Gulf Cooperation Council. These discussions are aimed at coordinating efforts to contain the situation and prevent further escalation. The developments have also drawn attention within the U.S. political system, particularly in Congress, where lawmakers are increasingly focused on oversight and the scope of presidential authority in military operations. Discussions around war powers frameworks have re-emerged, reflecting the importance of institutional balance during times of crisis. Meanwhile, U.S. media coverage has intensified, with major outlets focusing on both the strategic implications of the situation and its potential economic impact, particularly in relation to global energy markets. The planned visit by U.S. President Donald Trump to China has been delayed, drawing attention, highlighting how the current tensions may be affecting global diplomatic engagements. As developments continue, Washington's decisions, both military and diplomatic, are expected to play a decisive role in shaping the direction of the crisis.
تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها للاستجابة للطوارئ والكوارث في ظل الأوضاع الجيوسياسية الحاصلة في المنطقة. جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي تعمل من ضمن منظومة إنسانية متكاملة مع مؤسسات دولة الكويت من حيث الاستجابة السريعة وتجهيز المتطوعين من ضمن أفرقة مختلفة للاستجابة للطوارئ في سرعة قصوى. يعد متطوعين جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي من المتطوعين اللي تم تدريبهم مكثفاً في الإسعافات الأولية والاستجابة للكوارث والاستجابة الميدانية. تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها الميدانية ورفع جاهزيتها من حيث الاستجابة للطوارئ في حالات اللي يتم ندائها. بالنسبة للمخزون الاستراتيجي لجمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي فإحنا على أتم الاستعداد للاستجابة في حال النداء من قبل مؤسسات حكومة دولة الكويت.
For more on this, we're now joined by our KTV correspondent in Washington, Dalia El-Koumi. Hello, Ms. Dalia. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start with the latest developments. What is happening in Washington right now? What are the latest developments concerning the war with Iran?
Well, Washington right now is in active debate mode within the administration and both the Congress as well, focused on managing escalation while continuing military pressure on Iran. There is a clear effort to avoid broader regional war while maintaining deterrence, but still the war is raging right now, and we have not yet reached any diplomatic efforts that would start soon, or that there were some rumors that there were efforts to start working diplomatically behind the scenes to bring the war to the end.
And Dalia, we've been hearing a lot of contradictory messaging coming from the White House. Is there a lot of political pressure on the administration from some political circles?
Definitely. The administration and President Donald Trump are both facing growing pressure from both Democrats and some Republicans. And this is due to the mixed messaging concerns about war duration and rising costs. Constantly, there is questioning to the president and his administration, his staff, Secretary of War Hexet, and the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Marco Rubio, how long is this war supposed to drag, and what is the scenario of pulling out of Iran if they have any?
Now, Ms. Dalia, we've heard from Senator Chris Murphy, a Democratic representative from Connecticut, saying very directly that Trump has lost control of the crisis. What can you say to this point?
Right now, we cannot say that, but we can say that President Trump is weighing different options, but he is putting or keeping the war pressure and the military deterrence on Iran. A lot of distaste is coming out of Washington right now due to this war, especially that during his campaign, President Trump has promised to, like the MAGA, we heard so much of him saying about the MAGA, Make America Great Again, and that he will focus on the internal situation, trying to improve the livelihood of the American people. But now he's engaged in another war outside, and it has dragged on for almost 3 weeks now, and they do not know when is the end. So that is the main point now circulating in Washington, and a lot of pressure is being put on this administration to tell us when is this war going to end, or what is exactly the strategy of pulling out of Iran.
Ms. Dalia, as you mentioned just now, we're hearing that he's weighing a lot of options. One of these options are the deployment of troops. What can you tell us about this point here? Because we're hearing a lot of contradictory messaging coming from him. Just yesterday, he said that they would wind down their military operation. But at the same time, we're hearing reports that the 11th and 32nd Marine Expeditionary Units, along with the 82nd Airborne Brigade, are being moved into deployment.
This is a big debate in Washington right now. The Department of Defense frames reinforcement as defensive, aimed at protecting U.S. forces and interests in the region, despite rumors that parallel talks of scaling down, but it reflects a dual-track strategy, deterrence and flexibility. At the same time, I do not think that the current administration is going to go ahead announce any U.S. troop deployments. President Trump was clearly asked about that 2 days ago, and he said, he joked with one of the reporters saying, if I was going to deploy any troops, I'm not going to let you know. But no, he was very clear about it. He said, I have no intention of deploying U.S. troops right now on the ground.
Now, again, I'm sorry for reiterating this point of contradictory messaging, but we do know that the USS Tripoli has been deployed and is moving towards the region. So is there some disconnect between his actions and his words right now?
Absolutely. There is a lot of contradictory reactions and announcements from the president lately. We heard him saying that the operations from Iran is winding very soon, and then all of a sudden yesterday he takes to social media, again, Truth Social, his media platform, saying that if Iran does not open the Strait of Hormuz, he is going to attack them very badly. So this administration's rhetoric change has been extremely intensified during this war. We hear completely contradicting reports. We hear completely contradicting announcements. At one point, President Trump says, we're very nearing the end of war. We already achieved what we wanted to achieve. On the other hand, he's threatening to keep bombarding Iran and keep the war going on as long as Iran is not retreating and it's not agreeing to any of the U.S. demands. So there has been and there is contradictory remarks coming out of President Trump all the time and his administration.
Ms. Dalia, as you just mentioned, Trump did give a warning to Iran, saying that if they don't open the strait in the next 24 to 48 hours, that their power plants and energy infrastructure will be attacked. In return, we heard that the Iranian parliament speaker announced that if any attacks were to occur on the energy infrastructure in Iran, retaliatory strikes on the Gulf states would then take place. Is Trump betting or using the Gulf states as a bargaining chip almost against Iran?
You can say that, but still, we've seen how President Trump has appealed to NATO and other countries to start helping. And of course, this is one of the reasons he has been using this, let's say, he has this point in his hand, and he's always pressuring the Gulf states to help him, although they have been attacked, but they are standing apart and they do not want to be part of this war, and they have constantly announced that they do not want to be a part of this war. The administration is trying to project strength, trying to say that the allies are with it, they're going to defend the United States or stand behind the United States. But we have seen very clearly that since Iran started this war, it has been attacking U.S. allies in the region, and the United States has not been able to stop that. So maybe it is a paper that he's holding. It's a strategy that he's holding, pressure so that the Middle East countries can step in and help as he had hoped. But so far, President Trump has not found any help from anywhere, neither NATO nor the Gulf states nor the Arab world. We see a little bit of political pressure on Iran stemming from attempts at negotiations. They're trying to bring Iran back to the negotiating table and trying to stop this war. But neither of the countries that the president and the administration have appealed to are willing to be involved in this war.
Now, Ms. Dalia, with the attacks on the Gulf states, and we've seen America's response in terms of moving defensive interceptors around the world towards the region, how does this affect America's reputation on a global scale in terms of its political capital and the trust that people have in the American government?
Right now, it's pretty shaken. We can say that the administration is trying to project, as I said, strength externally, while managing domestic dissatisfaction. However, there is a decline in public support inside and I think outside. A lot of the European countries, we have seen how the Minister of Information in Germany, when he was asked, he said, this is not our war and we're not going to be dragged in it. So there is a lot of dissatisfaction, and the image of the United States as fair has been a little bit shaken. Although that behind the scenes, envoys are exploring indirect channels via mediators like Qatar, Egypt, and others. At the same time, there is a lot of maybe negative rhetoric about why was the U.S. involved in this war in the first place, and what is going to go on, and how this has caused a lot of turmoil in the region, and it has not helped at all the countries in the Gulf countries and the countries all over the world. Now we have a disruption in oil supply, which was very obvious when President Trump, even and extremely contradictory, because President Trump said yesterday that he's going to allow some of the Iranian oil to flow because there was a big shortage, which was very contradictory, that we're fighting the country, and at the same time we're allowing it to sell its oil because it was needed globally. So there is a lot of concerns, and not only concerns. People are not very happy around the world, and even either internally and externally, about this administration and about the performance that is taking place right now.
And now, in terms of the internal American domestic reaction, has this war impacted the economic situation there? And how are people responding to these economic developments?
Oh, absolutely. It has affected very much the internal economic situation in the United States, and it has put a lot of pressure on the Americans. We have seen prices rise in the grocery stores. The oil prices are skyrocketing, and people are complaining very much. Despite having the inflation, the persistent inflation, the war is not helping economically inside the United States. We have seen how the Federal Reserve, in its last meeting, it has refrained from lowering the interest rates, which was a demand for President Trump for a very long time, signaling that the economy cannot get rid of the inflation and that it's persistent. The job loss in the market is also high. So people are blaming this administration instead of focusing on the internal problems and what is going on inside. There's a lot of, like we say, public anger. There's a declining public support that makes this balance increasingly fragile and harder to sustain over time because of the internal pressure this war has put on the average American people who are working and who elected President Trump on the basis that he's going to focus on the internal economy and he's going to make life better, improve life for the Americans inside.
Now, Ms. Dalia, as you mentioned, the public support for this war is declining and the economic hurt is beginning to show in American society. Is this economic pressure translating into political pressure on Trump, or is there not enough yet?
We can say that there is a lot of pressure on President Trump, but you have to understand that we have a huge rift inside the United States between the two major parties, between Republicans and Democrats. Democrats are totally against this war. They're trying to, through Congress, put pressure on President Trump and have a lot of questions and bring all the administration to Congress for questioning and trying to halt this war. We know that as a commander-in-chief, President Trump had the right to announce war for 60 days. Apart from that, he has to go back to the Congress. We have seen how his War Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has asked for extra funding. So going back to Congress, they have to go back to Congress to get this funding. There's a lot of pressure on the current administration, but we have to understand that Republicans are still, or the majority of the Republicans, despite a lot of them have voiced concerns and have voiced dissatisfaction with the war decision to start with. But a lot of Republicans are still backing up President Trump on the basis that Iran was a threat, a huge threat not only to the United States but to the whole region, and it has not been able to achieve anything through the negotiations that have been going on for a very long time. So a lot of people, and especially Democratic Party, not only the regular people in the street, but also the administration, the Republicans holding positions in Congress and the administration are still backing up President Trump on the basis that Iran was a huge threat and that it had to be dealt with.
Well, Ms. Dalia, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for your part in this segment, but I'd just like to thank you once again for joining us and shedding light on the situation and the developments and reactions coming from the U.S. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dalia Al-Koumi, our correspondent in Washington, D.C. Now, as the tension escalates in Iran, the impact is no longer confined to the Middle East. In Asia, Japan finds itself facing a dual challenge, safeguarding its energy security while navigating mounting pressure from its alliance with the United States. More on that in this report.
Japan, heavily reliant on oil imports from the Gulf, faces a direct threat to its economic security today, with escalating risks in the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital energy arteries. Any disruption to maritime navigation could lead to a sharp rise in oil prices and put further pressure on the Japanese economy, which is still recovering from a global slowdown. But the challenge doesn't stop at the economic level. Politically, Tokyo finds itself facing a complex dilemma: its commitment to its ally, the United States, and the constraints of its pacifist constitution, which limits any external military involvement. Washington is pushing for greater participation from its allies in protecting maritime navigation, but Japan prefers a limited role, focused on logistical and intelligence support, without direct involvement in combat. Meanwhile, Tokyo is trying to maintain diplomatic leverage, drawing on its historical ties with Tehran to potentially play a role in de-escalation, though this role is diminishing as military operations intensify. On a broader strategic level, Japan fears that war could drain American resources and divert Washington's focus from Asia at a time when security challenges from China are escalating. Between energy security, alliance pressures, and constitutional constraints, Japan finds itself at the heart of a crisis it did not initiate, but is paying the price for.
For more on what's happening coming from Tokyo, Japan, we're joined by our KTV correspondent Najib El-Khash in Japan. Hello, Mr. El-Khash, can you hear us?
Yes, nice to be with you.
Thank you for joining us, sir. Could you start off with telling us To what extent have the Japanese markets and the Tokyo Stock Exchange been affected by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, seeing as Japan is very dependent on Gulf oil coming from the strait?
Well, there is a slight decline in indexes of the stock market. The Nikkei 225 declined by 3.3% on last Thursday. This time we have a long weekend. Friday was a holiday too, so this is the third day of the market is off. But tomorrow we will see more results. But it is obvious that the market which was doing very well before the start of the battle in the Gulf is now declining after reaching like a record increase in the levels of the indices before the war started. So we see some decline, as I said, but actually, because Japan has one of the largest reserves of oil in the world, they have reserves that are enough for 8 months. There is like a general feeling that things will be all right at the end, but the country will, of course, witness a rise in the prices of fuel and gasoline, which will affect all sectors of the economy, of course. And there is worry. But it's not a very immediate worry compared to other countries, even in the region like Korea and other countries who do not have such reserves and who have an industrial machine that needs oil continuously.
And sir, how is the Japanese government addressing public anxiety about the rising fuel and commodity prices resulting from the closure of the strait? Are there plans for any direct support to affect the situation?
Well, yes, actually, the current Prime Minister Takaichi, who was in Washington just 2 days ago, actually achieved a landslide victory in the recent elections based on her promises to eliminate some taxes, especially taxes on food, consumption taxes for the people with limited income. And now she is talking about supporting people to address the problem of rising fuel prices. Also, it seems that the Japanese government is trying to also start thinking about long-term plans to diversify the sources of oil to Japan. Currently, Japan imports more than 90% of its oil from the Middle East. But during the visit I just mentioned to Washington, there have been talks about huge Japanese investments in the energy sectors in the United States, including oil production facilities in Alaska. And also there have been talks about exporting American oil to Japan in the near future.
Now, sir, Iran has stated that it may allow Japanese ships to pass through the strait. Is the government in Tokyo in current direct contact with Iran? And how are they able to ensure the tankers are exempt from any targeting or closure?
Well, exactly like your report, the report you just broadcasted mentions, Japan has historically had ties with Tehran, which gave Japan diplomatic leverage. However, it seems that the Japanese government took the decision to abandon that because the Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi called his Iranian counterpart Arakchi, and the press release on the website of the foreign ministry after that was full of condemnation, that Japan condemns the fact that Iran is hindering navigation in the Hormuz Sea, and it was very strongly worded. And after that, also Japan and other countries, other G7 countries issued a joint statement also condemning the acts of Iran. And now, regarding the point you just mentioned, it seems that Iran offered to have negotiations with Japan to let the Japanese vessels go, but Japan is refusing to do that. And the Japanese Foreign Ministry said that Japan will not go into unilateral negotiations with Iran. So it's either an open Strait of Hormuz or nothing. That means that rejecting this diplomatic gesture from Iran means that Japan is now really entrenching itself in the American camp without hesitation and without leaving a leeway for diplomatic give and take with Iran.
And sir, what can you tell us about the reports indicating that Japan is willing to trade in the yuan to allow its vessels through the Strait of Hormuz? How did these reports come to be?
Well, these are not confirmed yet, and Iran is putting this condition to use the Chinese currency instead of the dollar. But of course, the United States is vehemently against that, and it is doubtful that Japan would go with that, having mentioned the recent like stance of Japanese government to be in the American camp. At the same time, Japan does have urgent needs for oil. So this could happen. It's not confirmed at the moment, but as I said, there are some other sources, and even there are talks actually of America giving special permission for a while for Japan to import Russian oil. So I think if negotiations with Iran progress on that front, I think Washington is going to try to do some moves to prevent that from happening.
Mr. Najib, can you tell us if the Tokyo government is able to play a mediator role between Washington and Tehran? And also, how do you think Iranians view Japan's role in this crisis?
Well, Japan traditionally had good relations with Tehran in previous years. Actually, Japan was pressing Washington to give it special permission to import oil from Iran because Iran is exporting oil anyway to China. And Japan seemed keen on keeping that connection with Iran. But in recent months and during this the current crisis, Japan doesn't seem to be behaving like a country that wishes to be a mediator or to have neutrality. It's going full-fledged, anti-Iran, pro-America. And we have a Japanese prime minister that just came back from Washington and who said that Trump, who launched these attacks, who are, regardless regardless of details of the current conflict, most experts believe that this is like against international law, this attack on a sovereign country. But she returned from America saying that Trump is the only person, the only leader who could bring peace and prosperity to the world. So Japan seems to be putting all their eggs in the American basket. And under these circumstances, it looks difficult for Japan to have a mediatory role in the near future.
Mr. Najib, can you tell us how Tokyo is responding and dealing with the pressure from the Trump administration to get involved militarily? Is there a chance we can see the self-defense forces move in to protect Japanese vessels? Because I'm not sure if people are aware, but the Japanese constitution abandons the use of force in its international relations, except for in the cases of self-defense.
Yes, well, there is a strong feeling here that the Japanese government is trying to find loopholes to offer as much help as possible to Washington and to listen to meet Washington's demands. And there have been discussions in the parliament now about technicalities such as, for example, if Japan goes into participating in mine sweeping in the Hormuz Strait, would that be considered an act of war against Iran? And it seems that the consensus is maybe yes, it would be like taking part in the military conflict. So Japan and other countries as well, especially France and Germany and Italy, said that they would like to play a role in opening the Strait of Hormuz for navigation, but only after the military hostilities come to an end. So the Japanese public, there is like a contradiction in the feelings towards the government, because as I said, when it comes to local economic policies, it seems that the government managed to get the approval of the Japanese, and the current government until very recently had a record amount of public support, but now that support is eroding. It's down to 53%. Because recent polls found that more than 80% of Japanese people are against the war on Iran, and also are against the participation of Japan, and even some politicians who are actually they are for changing the Japanese constitution and removing the pacifist clause from it and allowing Japan to have an army like other countries. Even those, some of those lawmakers and opinion leaders are saying, well, America did not consult with Japan when going into this war. So asking Japan to participate in it would not be, is viewed as unreasonable by many people in Japan. But it seems that the government is like strongly going with the direction of Washington. So I think soon this dilemma will unfold and will have its effect on the local politics in Japan.
Mr. Najib, you mentioned that there is a consensus in the Japanese government that removing mines would be considered participating in the war. Could you elaborate on the split within the government in Tokyo, as well as maybe not dissent from the public in Japan, and in terms of their split with the government on joining the war?
I can say that there is a split within the government. There is a split among the parties in the parliament. The opposition parties are asking questions about the legality of participating in the war. Actually, they asked the Prime Minister to evaluate the legality of the war itself, and she refused to do that. She said, let's not go there, and let's just try to do something constructive, such as mine sweeping, which would be good for world trade. But other lawmakers said that Iran could consider that as participation as an act of war against Iran, because putting the mines in the Strait of Hormuz is part of the military operations by Iran. So if a country comes and try to dismantle them, that would automatically be considered an act of war against Iran. That means that Iran might actually start targeting Japanese vessels or other Japanese interests. So corresponding to that, the Prime Minister said, well, maybe then we should wait until the military operations cease, and then we could try to participate in mine sweeping in the Strait of Hormuz.
Mr. Najib, can you tell us if there's any coordination in the East Asian community with Japan or China or Korea or any other nation, if there's any cooperation to deal with this oil crisis, and how will this conflict impact the balance of power in Asia?
Well, there is like divergence between the stances of different governments in this region. China is completely opposed to the war on Iran and sees it as aggression that defies international law. Korea is more on the subdued stance, but they expressed a grave concern when the United Nations decided to move part of the missiles, the anti-missile system, the THAAD system, from South Korea to the Gulf. And Korea said that now we are more exposed towards vis-a-vis North Korea. And that is not strategically a wise thing to do, because North Korea could benefit from the situation. Whereas Japan is very much on the American camp, as I mentioned. So it seems that Washington is doing what they want, and they are making very strong demands from allies to participate in the war. So Trump, as we know, asked South Korea, the Republic of Korea, and Japan by name to send naval forces to participate in the war. Both of them refused, and it seems that Trump backtracked, and now he's asking them to do logistic support and diplomatic support. So, I mean, as we know, it seems that the Trump administration is really doing what they want to do without much consultation with their allies. But in general, the popular feelings in all the countries of the region are against the war. As for governments, it really depends on the current ruling party and their individual stances towards this issue.
Mr. Najib, before we let you go, do political circles in Tokyo consider this crisis to be a turning point for Japan, to prompt it to reevaluate or reassess its defense policy and its traditional military role in global politics?
Well, there is a feeling here that for the past at least 10 years, the Japanese government has been trying to change the constitution without changing the constitution, which means like the public do not want to change the constitution, which with its pacifist philosophy, So the Japanese government is reinterpreting some laws and reissuing some old laws and some new legislation that allows Japan to offer logistic support to allies and to expand the concept of self-defense to include sending forces overseas to support allies and not confine it to actually defending the islands of Japan, the Japan proper. So now we see that the spotlight is moving from the local issues to international issues again. And we see that, for example, a few days ago, there were 11,000 people who demonstrated against the government's inclination to participate in the war and to preserve the constitution. So now it's a heated issue again, and I think it all depends on the result of the current policy of the government, which is taking, at least we can say, a clear path, and that will have clear results. And based on that, if it's a failure, I think Japan will be very reluctant to participate or go in the way of changing the pacifist constitution. But if Japan, collects the fruits of this stance with Washington, then I think the government will have a stronger stance to try to perhaps change the constitution and perhaps have an army and perhaps have a situation where it's easier for Japan to actually be involved in in global conflicts.
Well, Mr. Najib, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your time and insights during this crisis.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Najib Ilkhash, our KTV correspondent from Tokyo, Japan. As we continue this coverage, the economic impact of the current escalation is becoming increasingly evident as global markets react to the risking uncertainty and growing concerns over energy security. With oil prices fluctuating and a key trade route under close watch, the developments are beginning to shape the global economic output. More in this report.
A prolonged Iran war risks an unprecedented crisis in global energy supplies, and that kind of shock could ripple through every major economy, raising costs for households and businesses. Dmitry Zhdanikov is Reuters energy and commodities editor.
We're already in the energy shock. To put it simple, the world has lost around a quarter of oil that it was getting daily before the war started. So when a quarter of something is not available, inevitably people will be scrambling to buy more and more oil and products for higher prices. So the shock is already very big.
But some countries are more exposed than others and less able to cushion the blow. In Europe, a fresh energy shock revives painful memories of the surge that followed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Germany's industry-heavy economy has a lot to lose. Its manufacturing sector has only just stopped contracting for the first time since 2022. And as a major exporter, it's vulnerable to any global downturn. Italy also has a big manufacturing base, and oil and gas account for one of the highest shares of primary energy consumption in Europe, making it sensitive to price spikes. Britain's electricity system relies more on gas-fired power than other major European economies. And gas prices, rising faster than oil since the start of the war, often set its electricity costs. Japan is firmly in the firing line. It sources around 95% of its oil from the Middle East, and nearly 90% of that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. A weak yen is already lifting import costs, feeding through to food and daily necessities. Among emerging heavyweights, the Gulf faces a direct hit. Some forecasters now expect contraction this year, reversing pre-war growth hopes. Higher oil and gas prices are no help if the effective closure of Hormuz prevents exports, especially for Kuwait, Qatar and Bahrain. India is another exposed giant. It imports about 90% of its crude and nearly half of its liquefied petroleum gas, with roughly half of its oil and an even larger share of its LPG coming through Hormuz. Economists are trimming growth forecasts, and the rupee has fallen to a record low. Turkey, which borders Iran, is bracing for potential refugee inflows and more geopolitical uncertainty. Economically, its central bank has paused interest rate cuts again and has sold as much as $23 billion in reserves to bolster the lira. Sri Lanka has made every Wednesday a public holiday for state sector workers to cap energy costs. Schools, universities and public institutions are shutting. Non-essential public transport is suspended and a national fuel pass now restricts fuel purchases. Pakistan, which was on the brink 2 years ago, has raised petrol prices and closed schools for 2 weeks. Government departments have had fuel allowances halved and are barred from buying new air conditioners. Reza Bakir is Global Head of Sovereign Advisory Services at Alvarez and Massel. He says it's a substantial economic shock to many emerging markets.
Countries that have large petroleum imports, for example, countries like Pakistan, Egypt, have had petroleum import bills last year of more than $10 billion each. Second, countries that have weak external balances, such as they have current account deficits or they don't have very high levels of foreign exchange reserves that can buffer these kinds of shocks.
Energy choke points and rising prices are testing economies worldwide. The longer the conflict persists, the more acute the pressure becomes.
قوة الإطفاء العام على استعداد تام وجاهزية للتعامل مع أي طارئ على مدار الساعة من خلال مراكزها البرية والبحرية والمطارات، ونحن نعمل وفق خطط طوارئ متكاملة بتجهيزات متطورة وكوادر مدربة على أعلى مستوى لضمان سرعة الاستجابة وكفاءة التعامل مع مختلف البلاغات سواء كانت خطرة أو بسيطة. وهذا الاستعداد والجاهزية لدينا مستمرة على مدار العام حفاظاً على سلامة الأرواح والممتلكات وتحقيق الأمن المجتمعي.
الحرس الوطني قادة وقواته دائماً على استعداد وجاهزية تامة لحماية الوطن بالتعاون مع زملاء السلاح في وزارتي الدفاع والداخلية وقوة الإطفاء العام، وتقديم الدعم والإسناد لكافة جهات الدولة، خاصة في أوقات الأزمات والطوارئ. ونسأل الله أن يحفظ وطننا الكويت من كل مكروه في ظل قيادته الرشيدة.
تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها للاستجابة للطوارئ والكوارث في ظل الأوضاع الجيوسياسية الحاصلة في المنطقة. جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي تعمل من ضمن منظومة إنسانية متكاملة مع مؤسسات دولة الكويت من حيث الاستجابة السريعة وتجهيز المتطوعين من ضمن أفرقة مختلفة للاستجابة للطوارئ في سرعة قصوى. يعد متطوعين جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي من المتطوعين اللي تم تدريبهم مكثفاً في الإسعافات الأولية والاستجابة للكوارث والاستجابة الميدانية. تؤكد جمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي جاهزيتها الميدانية ورفع جاهزيتها من حيث الاستجابة للطوارئ في حالات اللي يتم ندائها. بالنسبة للمخزون الاستراتيجي لجمعية الهلال الأحمر الكويتي فإحنا على أتم الاستعداد للاستجابة في حال النداء من قبل مؤسسات حكومة دولة الكويت.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our special live coverage of the crisis currently taking place in the state of Kuwait and the Gulf region. We're now joined in studio by our guest, Dr. Awad Al-Nasafi, economist, professor of accounting and finance, and a financial strategy and decision-making consultant. Dr. Nasafi is considered a prominent voice in economic analysis, offering in-depth insights into the impact of regional and global developments on markets, particularly in the areas of energy and macroeconomics. He also brings extensive academic and professional experience in accounting and finance, along with advisory expertise in enhancing financial decision-making and analyzing economic policies. Thank you for joining us today, Doctor, in the studio.
Thank you for having me here, and Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak to you too, sir. Now, we were speaking before we started shooting about these 5 nodes of let's say, technological points that you'd like to discuss. But before we get into that, the global energy markets are facing geopolitical reality imposed on them by this war. As an economist, how do you interpret this situation?
First of all, I need to just elaborate in what we are seeing right now. It's not another crisis of energy. It is a coalition between two eras. One era is which put the GCC countries in the top of the important oil reserve. This is the old era that we work with during the last 100 years. So the next era, with the second era, is putting the GCC countries, especially UAE, Saudi, Qatar, and Kuwait, in the top of physical infrastructure of technology.
Okay.
So if we understood the cycle of the technology, it will be very clear point to see why we have this war right now and why it is now.
Could you describe this cycle?
Yes, yes. To understand the artificial intelligence, it's not about apps, it's not about softwares. Artificial intelligence, it's about 5 nodes. First is the R&D, and here we will bring
research and development.
Yeah, research and development, and here we will bring up Israel on this. Israel is the highest #1 country in R&D in the world as a percentage of their GDP, and Israel linked their ecosystem and the system, especially with the cybersecurity, with the technology, with the data centers, all because Israel research, United States implement. So Israel economy now, it is 50% of their export is technology. 20% of their GDP is a technology. So what happened? It links their strength in technology with Europe and United States. So we have now an ally, United States, Europe, and Israel. That's why Europe and United States backing up Israel, because Israel feeding them with the technology, and their economic system built up with that technology.
Would you say this is part of the military-industrial complex?
Away behind the military complex, away behind. It's, we are talking about Microsoft, we are talking about Google, we are talking about NVIDIA and Apple. All of those companies, and we have many giant, United States now has more than 20,000 companies in the technology. It's funded by the government and sometimes funded by venture capitals. And by the way, those companies, it is 4 times the companies in China.
People argue now that the AI and the tech industry in America is what's driving the American economy now.
It is.
In this current.
It is. Like to let you know that during the between 2013 till 2024, United States expend more than $600 billion in technology and artificial intelligence. 25 alone, it expends around 150 billion. So 25% out of the 10 years back. Yeah. Why is that? Because now the technology is mature.
It's ready for public
mature.
Deployment.
Yeah, it is. It is, and we can see the expansion now on the artificial intelligence, cloud Gemini, and other. That's expanding, and it's extremely different than what we used to have 2 years or 3 years ago. So this is R&D converted to be technology or a product.
Okay,
to be sold,
tangible technology.
Yeah, to be sold or a product. That product need data centers, and that data center needs energy. Can you imagine the data center consume energy as big as small cities? Yani one data center.
A single center.
One data centers. Yeah. Can you imagine this? But they have a problem now, because the second nodes after the R&D is the minerals. Minerals is not available in the United States, not available in Europe, not available in Israel.
We see a competition between the US and China on these minerals.
It's not a competition. It's China controlling out of 20 rare mineral, China control 19.
That's a monopoly
and constrains the export of those minerals. Also, it's not about mineral. You can find minerals in Africa or in Greenland and in South America and Saudi Arabia. By the way, Saudi Arabia and Oman now is doing a massive mining finding those minerals within the country and investing in other mining
As a joint venture between the two
No,
countries?
no,
Individually?
on their lands.
Okay.
And other companies, they're investing in other companies beyond their borders in a mining companies to find out those minerals. The thing is, it's not about the mineral as a raw mineral. It's about the mining, processing, and producing the conductors, the semiconductors, all those things, and then shipping them or selling them. This is controlled by China.
So this is the third node you're saying?
No, this is the second node. The second node. This is controlled by China. So the competition now, it's not fair. So we have the R&D, we have the data center, but we need the minerals. So this is in China. The bargaining power of China at this stage, they can turn off their data center through not exporting their minerals. And that's why the President Trump fight for Greenland.
Because there's a big abundance of minerals.
Greenland has 35 minerals. 24 out of those 35 is a need for Europe and the United States. Another issue which we will come back on the fifth nodes is the roots, because now ice is melting and they're finding a route nearby the Greenland.
Yes, around northern Europe.
In the northern Europe. That's link Asia, Europe, and United States in a shorter way than the normal one we are using right now. So energy is available within GCC. We are ready, and we are ready also to build the data centers. And we are part of the negotiation between Europe and the United States to build those data centers within our area. And then we link Europe and then the United States with those data centers. The problem now, Europe facing, they don't have the money, they don't have the capacity to build or expanding their electricity infrastructure. So what happened? We have two deals. One, building the data center within our lands. The second one, we bringing our funds, or like BIF funds, Kuwait Investment Fund, Abu Dhabi Investment Fund, all to build or invest in Europe to expand their infrastructure on that, and building also data center within Europe, pure private investment. So at this stage, we are building a good relationship, and we are tying up with the Western part or the Western economy. But at the same time, we have a good relationship with China. So most likely, China doesn't like this.
Of course not. It's oil supply is a risk now.
It doesn't like this because it's not about oil supply. It's what I call as the counter architect. China, Iran, and Russia. Why is that? Those are not, they are trying to pressure out Europe and the United States, because Russia has oil and nuclear energy. Iran has LNG, as well as they have oil. But it's under sanction now.
But we're hearing reports that the U.S. is going to open Iranian oil to the market.
And this is the contradict between strategic pressure and the market need.
Yes.
Now,
so what can you tell us about this contradiction and this balancing?
That is the main problem now we have. United States, under the pressure of the energy pricing getting so high, as well as another pressure to bring Iran to the Western market. That's the problem. And this is the strategic pressure. But now it is. I don't think it will be returned back again. Yani this is for once, system? And it's in the vessel, only in the vessels, and that's it. But it's emotional effect on the market. It won't make a big difference, but it's emotional effect.
But we're seeing a lot of responses from the IEA, the US, and European members releasing a lot of their energy reserves to sort of hold prices
strategic,
down.
yeah.
This can only go for so long until
the
they run out.
problem, it's not releasing. The problem is the supply uncertainties now.
The supply uncertainties.
Yeah, this is the problem. Supply uncertainty is a major issue now, and the consumer psychology.
So how will this uncertainty affect the consumer psychology?
See, to understand why the prices spike, we have an issue of supply uncertainties because Hormuz is blocked. Oil fields under attack. So with Hormuz, it's 20% of oil going through Hormuz, and no extra capacity anywhere beside the GCC.
Or minimal capacity to move it outside.
No countries in the world has extra capacity about than GCC.
To fill the shortfall.
To fill the shortage,
Okay.
nothing. Only GCC can fill the shortage. And if you allow me, I can just explain why Iran expanding the proxy war in Lebanon through Hezbollah and Yemen through Houthi. This is to control the routes,
Yeah, we
the
saw.
fifth nodes,
The
to
Houthis-
control the routes.
The Houthis announced that they will now directly be involved and close Bab el-Mandeb.
This is to control the routes because data, everybody, any country in the world, if you just block the data, banking system will not work, financial market will not work, government cannot work,
The
because
technological
we all work with this technology.
Yes.
We cannot work without it. Cutting the cables will create a big mess to us. So that's why the proxy war is just a sign. And being in Syria and controlling Iraq, that's mean taking out part of the oil to supply uncertainties. Being in Yemen and Lebanon, that's Lebanon in the Mediterranean Sea and Syria in the Mediterranean Sea, cutting cables. And Yemen will be two roles, Bab el-Mandeb and cables.
Yes.
And this will clarify why Israel going to Somaliland.
As sort of a counter to the Houthis.
Why is that? Because they need to secure their cables. They need to, and that's why they went to southern Yemen.
So do you believe
that
they will actually carry out the threat of cutting the cables?
I believe yes. If this war is not going in the right direction and what they want, they have nothing to lose anyway. The Iranian now in a position they have nothing to lose.
It's an existential war for them.
And by the way, the revolutionary arms have almost 40% of Iran GDP. They will not give it to you away, because any discussion about stopping this war, it will be on their cost.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the closure in the Strait is affecting the Asian market and the Asian geopolitical theater right now?
See, let's go to China now to see how it works. Oil going to 3 countries, Japan, China, Korea. Southern Korea. All those countries involved with the technologies. No oil, that's mean no production. No production mean less supply in the market with those technology. What happened? We cannot work without it. We cannot work without it. That's the problem. And we like it or not, as long as this corridor is not open and clean out the problem, I think within the next 2 months or 3 months, we will face the problem with the technology. With the technology, not with the foods, not with the supplies or the trading, normal trading.
Technological services.
We will face the technological services. That's the problem. Another way, we will also face an inflation.
Yes.
Big inflation.
Yes.
And inflation is not...
It's not easy to deal with.
Why we are not able to deal with that inflation, because usually we work with one variable with inflation. Cutting interest, increasing interest, and that's it. Now we have more than one variable, and what is called compound variable now.
Okay.
So compound variable, it will be a big mess to any central bank to solve.
Could you list out some of these variables that we're dealing with now?
Uncertainty, supply uncertainties, shipment
Uncertainty.
problem, insurance. And by the way, when the insurance company, the underwriters, increase the insurance on any zone, that always affect the psychology of the consumers. Then they will hold the investment. So it is conflict zone, so I will put hold on investment. What happened? So now in GCC, we'll take, for example, Kuwait, for example. So we are trying in our vision to diversify our economy. We cannot do that because we don't have oil now. It's blocked. Technology, no one able to come and invest on a conflict zone. So future uncertainty.
Which is the worst thing for markets.
Exactly, because people would like to see, build the confidence.
Whether it's good or bad, they want to know what the plan is for the future.
Yeah, confident. So we don't have confidence now in the market. So all those variables will bring up the inflation high. And the worst thing is, it will react in a second.
Correct.
But the government policy taking time to solve this.
Yes, there's a lag between the realities and the government reaction.
It is. That's a problem. So when we talk about that, we would like to put some issues about Iran. Iran choose to be with that counter architecture. Even they are choosing to be there, they are losing anyway. Why? They are selling their oil with discount to China, bringing Chinese, being under control of Chinese
currency,
currencies, technologies, everything. See, the risk thing is when you apply technology and embed all the technology within your system. That technology you cannot get away from.
So are you saying that the world is splitting into two technological systems?
Exactly.
It would be the US and the Chinese technology?
The Western and the Chinese
yes.
technology. See, imagine that's, and by the way, all GCC is under pressure now from the Western technology to get away from the Chinese. But we will not be able to, because we need security. We cannot build our system with one system.
It's better to diversify.
Exactly. This is our sovereign security. We need to build this. And also, we have a good relationship with China. We don't want to mess with China also.
Correct.
China is a trading partner. It's buying our main products, and it's helping in mega projects. Still, we are in an area, in a connection between China and Europe and US. So we believe that we can build a mutual agreement and show a standards of everybody can work with everybody. Because GCC, during the last 100 years, GCC proved to be the trusted partner in oil supply.
Between the East and the Western worlds.
That's East, West, anywhere. We are a trusted partner. We never default. We never involve in any tension that's affect, and we never taking the oil as diplomatic tools or cards on our activities. We believe on economic development for everybody, and we believe that economic development for everybody that will return back to us. And that's why we are the only place in the world enjoying the lifestyle, enjoying the infrastructure we are on. I think no country in the world has that's the relaxing for their population, for their
the
people.
quality of life.
Exactly. And so, and this is our goal, and this is what we want to do.
Doctor, you brought up this point of sovereignty. Would you say it is appropriate to say that the current struggle with, as you're saying, diversifying the Western and the Eastern, the Chinese technological system, is there a question of sovereignty being put onto this now?
Yeah.
Because of the risks of having the Western assets and Western system.
I think it is a must now to build two systems.
How would that look, having two systems?
I'm not a technology guy that can tell you this, but from the security perspective, we need to build something like that. Why is that? Let's give you the Russian example. When sanctions come in Russia, so they blocked their transfer
on the SWIFT.
On the SWIFT. So before doing that, Russia was very smart to understand this can be done.
This is coming
so they built a SWIFT system.
Is it called KIPS or CRISPS?
I can't recall the name, but they built a system between their partners or trading partners, so to avoid that system. So technology now, we need our cables, we need our system, we need to localize even our cloud, localize our platforms. Otherwise, we will be monitored, we will be controlled, we will be switched.
It's a security risk.
It is security.
This is a growing notion of a local regionalized effort in organizations in terms of defense, technology, maritime operations. Do you believe this is the way to go? This is going to be the future of the region?
It is a must. It is a must, especially those days, because we have the American base here, and we find out that we face an attack, and we are fighting to secure our nation on that. And the United States now are fighting for their interest, not for us, not for our interest. And by the way, I believe something else on this, but I have no proof at this stage.
Okay.
Because I believe that's because we will be the data to understand what we will be on the future. And instead of selling energy or barrel of oil, we will sell clouding
units
hours.
Of clouding.
We will sell clouding hours
so
through
we
the
will
cables.
become the international data center.
Data centers, exactly. So being a data centers, fluctuation of oil prices is not helping the data center anyway. It will increase the prices for the data built on United States, in Europe, and because China is tied by Iran, with Iran, it received energy cheaper with a discount that it will be competing there. It's not making United States happy or Israel or European Union happy. So what happened, we come out with an agreement with them to build the data center here. But I feel that it is part of their bargaining power to put us in pressure to get some benefit on the cost of the energy.
So as a bargaining chip for a favorable deal.
Exactly.
But do you also believe that this notion of us being the data center of the world could be a possible off-ramp for both sides?
It is. It is. I think Saudi is a trust partner with Western, and United Arab Emirates, they have the capacity to build the data centers. They have the capacity to feed that data center with energy, and also they have the capacity to create jobs on that data center. And this is good for our nations as well.
We see our own local refocusing and shifting our attention to cybersecurity, technological services, the new upcoming digital infrastructure.
That's what we need. Anyway, that's what we need, because this is the future economy.
So this is the future to our diversification.
This is the future economy. It's the oil now out of that the past 50 years. Oil used to be the consumer commodity.
Okay.
Now, oil is not a consumer commodity. Now, oil is an input in the technology.
So it's more essential than it's ever been before.
Yeah, because the lead in the economy will be the technology, not the oil. So, for that reason, still we are holding our place, number one, in energy and in data centers.
Correct.
But we are not involving on the conflict between East and West in controlling because we are in a race.
But we are seeing some escalations happening right now. We've noticed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they've told the military attaché and the embassy staff of Iran to leave the country within 24 hours.
Yeah.
As well as in Qatar, we saw them label them as persona non grata.
And we'll see them somewhere else.
Perhaps.
Perhaps within the next couple of days. Yeah, I think we will see. Because Iran is not understanding the lesson. It is good for Iran to be part of the GCC because we are sharing the same corridors and we are sharing the same commodity.
Do you mean expanding the GCC to include Iran?
No. I mean
to be reliable partner,
business partner with GCC. Why is that? Let's make a comparison between the two blocks, Iran and the GCC. GCC is a wealthy state. Their people are wealthy and one of the amongst the highest income on the world. In Iran, 50% poor. Number one in the world in immigration, heads immigration. And by the way, they have a good schools, they have a good engineering.
True.
But those good engineers, they could not find the business that they can work with because of the sanction. There is no semiconductors, nothing in the technology. They are just blocked on doing technology.
They're in their local domestic production.
So there is no development. So good heads will leave the countries anyway.
So you're saying that there would be traffic moving from Iran to the GCC to support
It's not GCC. They are going to Canada, United States, in Europe.
But you're saying for the future cooperation.
The future, because Iran is not listening. We build together a good economy for us and for them, using their heads, developing their country because they need at least $400 billion in developing their oil fields.
So it will be a combination of our investments, our data centers, and their technical expertise.
Exactly. That's what we want.
We saw the Turkish foreign minister say that the Gulf states and Iran, after this war, have to come to some agreement on how to deal with each other. Regarding the Strait of Hormuz particularly, he said they will impose a new regime.
This is what we hope. But Iran is not easy to take out
of the situation.
Of the situation. Why? Because within Iran has a problem. I can explain Iran similar to Lebanon. Hezbollah and the government.
Okay.
Same as there.
So would you say it's the IRGC and the civilian government of
exactly,
Iran?
Because they control 40% of Iran GDP. Do you think they are willing to go away and say bye?
I don't think anyone would give up that 40%.
Another thing, Iran has another, beside the proxy war, they can deal with Al-Qaeda, they can deal with ISIS, they can deal with other militia, and they are feeding them. Anyway, during the last 30 years, they are feeding them. So what happened? The next step, it's not the war, because I believe that United States and Israel will come out with an agreement with Iran to close up Hormuz, and they create something similar to controlled by the United States or international coalition to control Hormuz.
So you think this is the solution? Will it be an international coalition to bring both parties to an agreement?
This is what happened. I believe this is what will happen next, and that's what we don't like it anyway. In GCC, I believe it's not good for us.
Why would it not be good for us?
Because once another military going on Hormuz, they will control our relationship, business partners.
True, we are seeing them demand $2 million per vessel to pass through the strait right now. So this is unfavorable conditions for the other countries in the Gulf.
Another thing, they will control our relationship with China, with other countries as well, because they put pressure on us not dealing with them.
To not deal
Not
with
dealing
China?
with China.
To deal with Iran instead of China?
No, Iran will be, see, Iran will be stopped, but it will not solved. Their problem will not solve. The problem now, it will be solved through Hormuz, making the vessel going and coming. But the problem with that, they will control our deals with other countries. So as long as you have some military there, there sometimes might be affecting you. So why? I believe that's why Saudi Arabia last week calling for a conference with Islamic League. And I think part of that to at least bringing a coalition, Islamic coalition, that can be controlling the Arabian Sea and Hormuz.
What can you tell us about Iran's condition for vessels passing through will have to trade on the yuan? Is there not a chance that the Gulf nations will accept this condition, or you think it's impossible?
No, it's impossible, and I don't think it will work anyway, because why is that? They're trying to bring the Chinese vessels, allowing the Chinese vessel to come in. Otherwise, no one will deal with that. And we are not willing to pay for moving around Hormuz. This is
it's not beneficial to our currency?
I think this is something showing us weak, and we have the right to move on through Hormuz, whether Iran like it or not. It is an international route,
waters, correct.
And we will not accept that. But this is bargaining power of Iranian militia to ask and to move the discussion, or in case they will stop that war, on this place. By the way, Iranian is very good in negotiation. They kept and they are willing to negotiate 10 years from now, and you receive nothing.
So then let's say this negotiation goes on for 10 years and the closure of the strait continues for 10 years. What does this mean for the global economic market?
It will be an international war. So Iran enemy now, not the GCC, not the United States, not Israel, nothing. Iran enemy will be the whole world, because
but this is their strategy.
I think they are just making that card, but with reality they will not be able to sustain.
So you don't think the economic pressure on the economic global system will be enough to push America to give into some conditions to Iran?
It's not about the United States closing Hormuz. It's not about the United States.
It's about the global world.
The whole world.
But this is Iran's strategy in this conflict, to pressure the international community, to pressure America.
They will be kicked out, for sure. They will be kicked out.
Do you think if they kick them out of this international system, this begins, or this decides the era of a bipolar world? Now you've created the Western system, and now this counter system that you've been talking about.
The thing is, Iran, I'm not a politician, but from an economic perspective, what happened if the Iranian government knocked down? There is no substitute for that government at this stage.
Correct.
That problem will have consequences in Iraq as well. Iraq controlled by that government. Anyway, we see government, but still their militia.
There's a lot of
everywhere in
Iraq.
Iraq.
In the country.
So what happened? It will complicate Iraq, and we don't want to have that, because in Kuwait we have almost 300 kilometers borders with Iraq. Saudi Arabia has almost more than 2,000 kilometers with Iraq. This will be complicated everywhere, and as I mentioned to you, they are feeding other militias, ISIS, Qaeda, and others. So they are willing to do anything. That's why we don't want to mess with Iran at this stage, and we need to keep distant with that government and trying to smooth transformation or changing the regime, smooth changing. It's not harsh changing. I think most of the leaders are killed. But still, the problem is the military within the Iran and the civilian government.
So is your point that Iran will continue to be there? They will be the neighbors after this war, many
Whether
years
we
to come
like
in the
it or
future?
not.
So we have to find a way to get along with
They
them.
were our neighbors, and they will still our neighbors. Whether this government, well, our problem is with the government. It's not with the Iranian people. It's not with the Iranian land. It's the government that's trying to complicate things. And by the way, they are not benefiting from this. It's a proxy war for them. They're fighting for the interest of Chinese and Russian. Now, who's benefiting from the situation here? Russia?
So that brings us to the next question. Who is benefiting in the short term right now?
In the short term, oil producer other than GCC, Russia, China, putting pressure on Europe.
Now, doesn't the Strait put pressure on China? We do see that their vessels are being let through, but if the conflict escalates in the Strait, does this not put their oil supply at risk as well?
It has an oil risk, but still it has another issue because China is the world manufacturer. So they will put pressure on Europe as well because of that.
So now this is
they don't want to mess with China, by the way. They hate China, yes, but still China has most of the American companies are producing their products in China.
True.
So they need to build a balance of bargaining.
So this is a very messy entanglement of pressures.
It is.
One pressure going this way, another pressure going through this
link
market.
it with the Russian-Ukrainian war. So now I think...
Would you say these are two proxy battles of the same war?
But with Russian and Ukraine it's not involved directly. It is indirectly because of Russia and European Union.
This is a more direct confrontation
This
with
is
the two sides.
China, Iran and GCC, United States, Europe and Israel. It's a direct conflict. Yes, everybody has an agenda, but still we have a direct. We have interest with China. We don't want to change the regime in Iran in a military set. We are not dealing with Israel, but there are some interests coming together in some points. And by the way, I need to mention something here, because we hear that in the Middle East, because they believe that it is a religious war, it is and so, it's conflict and so. And Israel is trying to expand their border from the river to the sea. This is, maybe it is true, but not at this time. The Israeli involvement this time is to secure the technology they have. By the way, the only country benefiting from the changes here is Israel, because Israel has a data centers as well as they have an energy. Mediterranean Sea gas allow Israel to feed their data centers as well as to export almost 10 million cubic meter to Europe.
What if this gets attacked? What if the Iranian regime attacks the data centers and this gas pipeline?
Do you believe that?
I mean, everything that's been happening the last 3 weeks is unprecedented.
Iranian government sent missiles almost 4 or 6 times what is sent to Israel, to GCC.
True, but in case of escalation?
Still, I don't think it will be very effective. Israel is way far from their effective missile. But still, they have the options to do that. But I don't think they are looking for that, because us are closer and will increase the uncertainty of supplies, because 20%. Israel is just 10 million cubic foot or meter, I can't recall that. But it can be substituted by the American LNG.
True. And now, is this war a way to sort of get Europe and other countries in the world to shift their focus and their purchasing to the U.S. supply at a higher rate?
That's, yeah, I think this is when Iran sent the missile to Qatar, it stopped 70% of LNG market. So what happened? And let's go back 2 months ago. President Trump put tariff 25% of any country that's not buying the LNG from the United States. They've been asking to buy from the LNG companies in the United States. Otherwise, I will put 25% tariff. Now, Iranian people, Irani send the missiles to the Qatar and taken out 17% of. Now all the supplies coming from Qatar will be shifted to the United States. Who is the benefit? Is the United States an enemy to Iran? With this view, I don't think so.
So you think both sides are sort of justifying the other's existence, using this war to justify their existence?
I don't think so. This is
too far.
Too far, but either they are stupid, and I believe this is the main point, or they are allies. But I don't think they are allies anyway. I mean, but what they are doing right now, they are helping United States economy and they're helping Israeli economy. LNG in Israel just increased by more than 3 times. LNG in the United States selling to Europe and other partner we used to have, Korea, Southern Korea or Japan, and also oil. With the control of Venezuela, that's the United States will control almost 30% of the oils
in the world.
So that's why what will make the oil prices stable.
Doctor, we're quickly running out of time. So before we conclude, I'd just like to ask you one last question. What is the best case scenario for getting out of this crisis?
I believe Hormuz will be taken out from Iran, and it will be either international coalition or Islamic coalition controlling Hormuz, and there will be an American troops within that place to avoid the conflict between that coalition and the Iranian government. But I believe that the government also of Iran will be changed dramatically, and now they are sending good signs. And I feel the things will go on our favor as well.
Well, Doctor, I'd just like to thank you once again for taking the time, joining us here to shed light on the economic impact that this crisis is going to have on the world, and your interesting approach and theory on the true underlying motives of this war.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Awad El-Nazafi from Al Yamama University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, as we come to the end of this special coverage, we have followed together the latest developments surrounding the ongoing regional escalation, along with their political, security, and economic implications. Throughout this program, we have heard from experts and correspondents across the region and around the world, reflecting the complexity of the situation and the importance of continued vigilance and awareness. While the developments continue to evolve, efforts remain focused on containing tensions and preserving stability, both regionally and internationally. We will, of course, continue to monitor events closely and bring you all the latest updates as they unfold. Until then, we thank you all for joining us. Have a good evening and stay tuned for the latest news and updates in our 7 o'clock news bulletin. Thank you for watching.